You've seen them. The ones who don't perform, don't chase, don't announce themselves with noise or spectacle, yet somehow everyone notices, not because they demand it, but because something in their presence commands it naturally, effortlessly, like gravity pulling you close without force. What is that quality? That quiet magnetism that makes strangers lean in, makes conversations deepen, makes people remember them long after they've left the room. It isn't charm, it isn't looks, it isn't the rehearsed wit or carefully curated confidence you see plastered across social feeds. It's something older, something the ancient Stoics understood deeply. True attraction flows from internal mastery, not external performance. When you stop seeking validation and start building character, you become the kind of person others can't help but notice, not because you're trying, but because you're real. In this video, you'll discover 6 simple habits rooted in Stoic philosophy that create this silent magnetism. These aren't tricks or techniques to manipulate perception. They're disciplines that transform who you are at your core, making you calm when others panic, present when others distract, purposeful when others ramble. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus knew this truth. The person who masters themselves naturally draws the world closer, and that person can be you, starting today, with 6 ancient practices that make you magnetically, undeniably, quietly powerful. If you're ready to walk this path with us, type "I choose inner mastery" in the comments below. Let's be honest. You've tried before. You've worked on being funnier, more impressive, more interesting. You've rehearsed stories, perfected your appearance, studied social dynamics like they're quantum physics. And maybe it worked for a moment. Someone laughed. Someone noticed. But then the attention faded, and you were back where you started, exhausted from performing a version of yourself that doesn't quite feel authentic. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The harder you try to be noticed, the more invisible you become. Desperation has a scent. People can feel when you're reaching for validation, when your confidence is borrowed rather than owned, when your presence is a carefully maintained illusion instead of a grounded reality. This isn't your fault. We live in a world obsessed with external metrics, likes, followers, impressions, reactions. Society trains us to believe that attraction is something we achieve through accumulation, accumulate enough wit, enough status, enough perfectly timed moments, and people will finally see us. But the Stoics understood something radically different. They knew that genuine magnetism doesn't come from addition, but from subtraction, stripping away the performance, the neediness, the constant calculation of how you're being perceived. What remains when you stop performing? Your true self, your calm center, your unshakable presence. And that is what people are starving for. In a world of noise, chaos, and pretense, someone who is simply, authentically, calmly themselves becomes a refuge. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room to be the most memorable. You don't have to entertain constantly to be valued. You simply have to cultivate 6 timeless habits that the Stoics lived by, habits that build real presence, emotional steadiness, and the kind of quiet confidence that makes others feel safe, inspired, and magnetically drawn to you. This is your call to transform, not into someone else, but into the truest version of yourself. Habit 1. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Simple wisdom, profound impact. Think about the last conversation you had. Were you truly listening, or were you waiting for your turn to talk? Were you present with the other person's words, or were you mentally drafting your response, planning your story, calculating how to steer the conversation back to yourself? Most people don't listen. They reload. They hear words as cues for their own performance, rather than as genuine expressions of another human being. And because of this, most conversations feel empty, transactional, forgettable. But when you listen, really listen, something shifts. The person speaking feels it immediately. They sense your full attention like warmth from a fire. Their words slow down. They go deeper. They share things they didn't plan to share, because your presence creates safety, and safety creates trust, and trust creates connection that most people spend their entire lives searching for. This is the first habit of quiet magnetism, listening deeply. Not as a technique, but as a discipline of presence. When someone speaks, you put down your phone. You stop the mental commentary. You look them in the eyes and give them the rarest gift in modern life, your undivided attention. The Stoics practiced this relentlessly. They understood that true wisdom comes not from speaking, but from absorbing, from observing, from being fully present to the world and the people in it. Marcus Aurelius wrote constantly about the importance of focusing on what is, rather than what we wish were true. Listening is how you practice that focus in real time. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to impress people with your words and instead give them the space to be heard, they become impressed with you. Because you've done something almost no one else does, you've made them feel seen, valued, important. You've given them your rarest resource, your attention, without expecting anything in return. People don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel, and the person who listens deeply makes others feel like they matter. That is magnetic. That is attractive. That is the quiet power of being fully, intentionally, generously present. Habit 2. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, war, plague, and the weight of an empire crumbling around him. Yet his writings reveal a man of profound calm, a leader who remained steady when everything else shook. His secret? You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Inner calm isn't the absence of chaos. It's the refusal to let chaos dictate your emotional state. Watch how people react when things go wrong. Flights get delayed. Plans fall apart. Someone criticizes them publicly. Most people spiral. Frustration bleeds into their words. Panic tightens their body language. Reactivity controls their decisions. And in those moments they become smaller, less trustworthy, less magnetic. But the person who stays calm, the one who absorbs the blow without collapsing, who responds thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively, that person commands the room, not through dominance but through steadiness. People instinctively look to the calmest person in crisis because calm signals strength, wisdom, emotional maturity, the very qualities that make someone feel safe to be around. This is the second habit, maintaining inner calm. The Stoics called it apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from being controlled by destructive emotions. It's the discipline of pausing before responding, of choosing your emotional state rather than letting circumstances choose it for you. You practice this in small moments. Traffic doesn't go your way. You breathe instead of cursing. Someone interrupts you. You let them finish instead of fighting for airtime. A project fails. You assess what you can learn instead of spiraling into self-criticism. Each time you choose calm over reaction, you strengthen your inner citadel. You prove to yourself that you are not a victim of external events, that your peace is yours to keep regardless of what happens around you. And others feel this. When you walk into a room carrying that stillness, people relax. They sense that you won't add to the chaos. that you're solid ground in a world of shifting sand. Your calm becomes contagious, and suddenly people want to be near you, not because you're entertaining, but because you're stable. And in an unstable world, stability is the rarest, most attractive quality you can offer. Habit 3. Seneca warned against the dangers of excessive speech. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. He understood that most words are noise, filler designed to ease our discomfort with silence, to prove we exist, to maintain the performance of being interesting. But the Stoics valued economy, not silence for silence's sake, but purposeful speech, words as tools, not decorations. When you speak, you mean something. When you're quiet, you're observing, learning, waiting for the moment when your words will actually matter. This is the third habit, speaking with purpose. Think about the people you respect most. Do they fill every silence with chatter? Do they interrupt, over-explain, dominate conversations with their opinions? Or do they speak less frequently but with greater weight, choosing their words carefully, saying what needs to be said and nothing more? Purposeful speech creates authority. When you're selective with your words, people listen more carefully when you do speak. They lean in. They remember, because they know you're not wasting their time with verbal clutter. You're offering something considered, something true. The practice is simple but difficult. Before you speak, ask yourself, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said right now? If the answer to any of those questions is no, stay quiet. This doesn't mean becoming robotic or withholding. It means respecting the power of language. It means recognizing that silence can communicate strength, thoughtfulness, self-control, all qualities that make you magnetic without saying a single word. Epictetus taught his students to examine their thoughts before releasing them into the world. The undisciplined mind speaks impulsively, reactively, carelessly. The disciplined mind filters, refines, and releases only what serves truth, connection, or understanding. When you adopt this habit, you stop rambling. You stop filling awkward pauses with nervous laughter or trivial commentary. You become comfortable with silence, and that comfort signals confidence. It tells others that you don't need constant validation through verbal performance, that you're secure enough to let moments breathe. And when you finally do speak, your words land with impact. People remember them, they quote you later, because you've earned their attention by respecting it. Habit 4. The Stoics had a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They intentionally visualized worst-case scenarios, not to be pessimistic, but to build emotional resilience. By confronting difficulty in their minds first, they stripped adversity of its power to shock, to paralyze, to control them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He lived this philosophy through plague, betrayal, and relentless pressure. He didn't avoid hardship. He transformed it into fuel for growth. This is the fourth habit, facing adversity with courage. Here's what most people do when life gets hard. They complain, they avoid, they collapse into victimhood. They broadcast their struggles as excuses for why they can't move forward, why they deserve sympathy, why the world is unfair. And while that's understandable, it's also repellent. People don't want to orbit someone drowning in self-pity. They want to follow someone swimming toward shore despite the current. Courage doesn't mean pretending hardship doesn't hurt. It means acknowledging the pain and choosing to act anyway. It's the quiet decision to face what scares you, to stand firm when everything in you wants to run. to keep your dignity intact even when life strips away your comfort. When you cultivate this habit, something shifts in how people see you. They watch you encounter setbacks and notice that you don't crumble. You adapt, you problem solve, you carry yourself with a resilience that inspires them to be braver in their own lives. The Stoic approach isn't about toughness for toughness' sake. It's about accepting reality as it is and responding with wisdom rather than panic. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Every challenge you face is an opportunity to prove to yourself and demonstrate to others that you are not fragile, that your worth isn't dependent on easy circumstances. And that is magnetic. People are drawn to those who can weather storms without losing themselves, who emerge from darkness still intact, still purposeful. Because if you can remain grounded when life shakes you, others know they can trust you when life shakes them too. Habit 5. Marcus Aurelius asked himself daily, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Not seem like one. Not perform the appearance of one. Be one." Integrity is alignment. It's the match between who you are in private and who you are in public, between what you say and what you do, between your values and your actions. And in a world where people constantly perform edited versions of themselves, someone with true integrity stands out like fire in darkness. This is the 5th habit, living with integrity. Think about how exhausting it is to maintain a facade. You say you value honesty, but tell convenient lies. You preach kindness, but gossip behind people's backs. You project confidence, but feel like an imposter every day. The gap between your authentic self and your performed self creates internal friction, and people sense it, even if they can't name it. But when you live with integrity, that friction disappears. You become the same person everywhere, at work, at home, in public, in private. Your word becomes reliable because you do what you say you'll do. Your presence becomes trustworthy because there's no hidden agenda, no manipulation, no performance designed to extract approval. The Stoics understood that virtue, arete, was the highest pursuit. Not wealth, not fame, not pleasure, but the cultivation of excellent character. And character isn't what you claim to be. It's what you consistently demonstrate through thousands of small choices that no one's watching. When you choose integrity, you stop trying to control how others perceive you. You simply act in alignment with your principles and let that speak for itself. If someone criticizes you, you can meet their gaze calmly because you know your actions match your values. If someone praises you, you can receive it without inflating your ego because you're not dependent on external validation. You've built internal validation through consistent, authentic action. This creates a magnetic quality that's almost impossible to fake: trustworthiness. People relax around you because they know you're not playing games, not wearing masks, not saying one thing and doing another. They know what they see is what they get. And in a world of illusions, that honesty, that wholeness, becomes irresistibly attractive. Integrity makes you solid, dependable, real, and real never goes out of style. Habit 6. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Notice he didn't say, be perfect immediately. He said, become. The Stoic path is one of continuous evolution, not static achievement. This is the 6th and final habit. Focusing on growth over perfection. Perfection is a trap. It's the voice that says you're not ready, not good enough, not polished enough to show up authentically. It's the standard that keeps you hiding, waiting for the mythical day when you'll finally be worthy of being seen. But that day never comes because perfection doesn't exist. It's an illusion designed to keep you small, safe, and stuck. Growth, on the other hand, is real. It's messy, it's vulnerable. It's the willingness to be imperfect in public, to try things you're not good at yet, to admit when you're wrong and adjust course. And paradoxically, that vulnerability, that honest acknowledgement that you're a work in progress, is deeply attractive. People don't connect with perfection. Perfection creates distance, intimidation, the sense that you're untouchable and therefore unreachable. But growth? Growth is relatable. It's human. It's the shared experience of stumbling, learning, improving, and stumbling again. The Stoics practice daily reflection, examining their actions, identifying where they fell short, and recommitting to their principles the next day. Marcus Aurelius filled his journals with reminders to himself, not because he had mastered virtue, but because he was practicing it daily, imperfectly, humbly. When you adopt this mindset, you stop pretending you have it all figured out. You stop performing flawless confidence and instead embody honest self-awareness. You share your struggles not as complaints, but as evidence of your commitment to becoming better. And people respect that. They admire the person who admits their weaknesses while actively working to strengthen them. This habit also frees you from the exhausting need to defend your ego. When someone offers feedback, you don't deflect or justify, you consider it. When you make a mistake, you don't spiral into shame. You extract the lesson and move forward. You become anti-fragile, growing stronger through difficulty rather than breaking under it. And that energy, the energy of someone constantly evolving, learning, refining, radiates hope. It tells others that growth is possible, that change is achievable, that they too can become more than they currently are. That is inspiration, and inspiration is magnetic. So here you are, 6 habits, 6 disciplines rooted in ancient Stoic wisdom. But separately, they're just practices. Together, they create a complete transformation, a shift from performing for approval to embodying authentic presence. When you listen deeply, you make others feel valued. When you maintain inner calm, you become the steady presence people seek in chaos. When you speak with purpose, your words carry weight that casual chatter never could. When you face adversity with courage, you inspire others to be braver. When you live with integrity, you build unshakable trust. And when you focus on growth over perfection, you radiate the hopeful energy of someone becoming more. These habits don't work in isolation. They reinforce each other, creating a compounding effect that transforms not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. You stop measuring your worth by external validation, because you've built internal validation through disciplined character cultivation. You stop chasing attention because your presence naturally commands it. You stop performing confidence because you've developed real confidence, the quiet kind that doesn't need to announce itself. This is the Stoic promise fulfilled. Master yourself and the world responds. Not because you've become someone else, but because you've become fully, authentically yourself, stripped of pretense, grounded in virtue, radiating the calm strength that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. You walk into rooms differently now. You carry yourself with a stillness that others notice but can't quite name. Conversations deepen around you. People seek your presence, your perspective, your calm. Not because you demand it, but because you've cultivated something rare and precious in a noisy, chaotic world. Genuine, unshakable, quietly magnetic presence. You already have everything you need. You don't need better looks, more charm, or a complete personality overhaul. You need 6 simple habits practiced daily with intention and discipline. Start today. Choose one habit. Maybe it's listening more deeply in your next conversation, or pausing before you react to frustration, or speaking only when your words add value. Practice it until it becomes natural. Then add another. Layer these disciplines slowly, patiently, the way the Stoics did, not chasing perfection, but pursuing progress. Marcus Aurelius didn't become a philosopher king overnight. Seneca struggled with his temper for years. Epictetus taught that wisdom is a lifelong practice, not a destination. They were human, imperfect, constantly working on themselves. And yet their commitment to these principles made them legendary, not for what they accomplished externally, but for who they became internally. You can become that too, the person who doesn't need to chase attention because your calm, authentic presence naturally draws it, the person others remember long after you've left the room, the person who embodies quiet magnetism, not through tricks, but through character. The Stoics left you a roadmap. Now it's your turn to walk the path. Be the quiet power. Be the steady presence. Be undeniably, magnetically, authentically you. If you're ready to become the person who doesn't perform but simply is, drop a comment. Real over perfect. Then subscribe to the Stoic Mode and hit the bell. We're only at the start of this transformation. Thank you for walking this path. Be authentic.